You know, they tell the story about this rabbi is walking by a non-kosher restaurant and he sees one of his members eating in the restaurant. Not only does he see him eating, he sees him eating a ham sandwich. Well, the rabbi is very disappointed. He waits outside the restaurant, and when the congregant walks out, he confronts him. And the congregant says, "Rabbi, did you see me go into this restaurant?" And the rabbi said, "Yes." He said, "Rabbi, did you see me order the ham sandwich?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Rabbi, did you see me eat the ham sandwich?" And the rabbi said, "Yes." And the congregant said, "That's great." It was all under rabbinical supervision. This week's Torah portion, we learn a very interesting law. The Torah says, "Veyitem nikiyim," you should be clean, you should be innocent in the eyes of God and in the eyes of man. And what our rabbis tell us this verse is teaching us is that it's not enough to know that what you're doing is right in the eyes of God, but you also have to make sure that what you're doing is also perceived by others as being right and just. And therefore, even if you know that you did the right thing, if others may misinterpret what you did, there's something called marat ayin, what the eye sees, perception. And you have to make sure that all of your actions are not only morally and ethically just and correct, but you also have to make sure that there's no suspicion that you did anything wrong. And Jewish law gives many examples. One practical example has to do with kosher. If you serve a meat dinner and you want to serve coffee with cream, you should put the cream in a bottle, not in a jar, because if it's in the jar, someone may think it's milk and meat. By putting it in the bottle on the table, everyone will see that it's non-dairy creamer. But there are many times in life that we have to go the extra mile to make it clear that we did the right thing. And the reason is very inspiring. The reason is because we learn proper conduct not only from the Torah and from books, but also from people. There are textbooks and there are text people. And what the Torah is basically saying is that everyone has an obligation to be a role model for proper conduct for others. And by this law being a blanket statement for every single Jew, not just for the leaders or the rabbis, what the Torah is saying is you, every person, plays a role in demonstrating to others how to conduct themselves properly. There is something called social pressure, and when we see others doing the right thing, we are influenced to do the same thing as well. And therefore you, whether you recognize it or not, have a very large impact on all those around you. Yesterday I was on a Zoom call with Representative Lois Frankel's chief of staff, and we were talking about certain Congress people who are anti-Israel and how to deal with it. And one of the things he said was, what we have to do is highlight people who love Israel, because that creates a mindset in America. That creates social behavioral patterns where people say, if they love Israel, I'll love Israel too. But when we focus too much on those who hate Israel, it creates a false negative perception that perhaps the United States of America does not love Israel, when in fact they are outliers, because the truth of the matter is that America loves Israel. And that is why the Congress and the Senate always stand with Israel, because they reflect the true will and desire of the American people, which is to stand with their greatest ally in the Middle East, the land of Israel. Have a wonderful day.